Kevin Hart just brought the house down at the BET Awards, and Meghan Markle was at the center of his jokes. In a fiery set, Kevin roasted Meghan on stage, leaving the audience cry with laughter while sparking a heated debate online. But what exactly did Kevin say, and did his comedy routine go too far for a live award show moment? What began as a lighthearted bit quickly turned into one of the most talked-about segments of the night, and the fallout has now reached far beyond the stage, shaking both Hollywood and the royal family alike. From the very moment Kevin stepped onto the stage, the audience knew they were in for an unfiltered performance. Known for his razor-sharp wit and fearless approach to comedy, Kevin wasted no time targeting Meghan, joking about her struggles with fame, her controversial royal exit, and even her relationship with Prince Harry. Man, Kevin quipped, Meghan left the palace saying she wanted peace and quiet, but somehow she's got Netflix deals, Spotify dramas, and Oprah on speed dial. That's not privacy, that's premium cable. The audience erupted in laughter, clapping and cheering as Kevin's timing landed perfectly. The cameras caught stars in the crowd literally wiping tears of laughter from their eyes. But behind the laughter, Harry and Meghan's camp was reportedly seething. What makes this moment more explosive is the timing. Meghan and Harry have been fighting desperately to control their image in America, where they hope to reinvent themselves as global icons. Yet here was one of the biggest comedians in the world, on one of the biggest stages in black entertainment, turning Meghan into a punchline. And it wasn't just a one-liner. Kevin kept going. He compared Harry to a man held hostage by Netflix contracts, mocked Meghan's constant complaint about royal life, and even imitated Harry's accent, asking, "Is this what my mom left me for?" The crowd lost it. Social media exploded within seconds. Clips of the roast went viral across Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube before the awards show even ended. But while the audience may have loved it, Prince Harry did not. According to insiders, Harry was furious at the routine, calling it a disgusting attack on his wife and threatening to take action. This is where the story takes a darker turn. Harry's anger was not simply about the jokes themselves. It was about the symbolic power of the moment. Kevin Hart didn't just mock Meghan. He mocked the image Harry has worked tirelessly to protect. For a man who abandoned the royal family in the name of protecting his wife's dignity, seeing her become the target of a global roast was humiliating in ways few could imagine. Harry reportedly confronted organizers behind the scenes, demanding a formal apology. But his outrage has only made the story grow bigger. What makes Harry's fury even more controversial is the way he has once again placed himself at odds with freedom of speech and comedy culture. Kevin Hart is not the first comedian to joke about Meghan, but his platform and delivery turned this into a cultural moment. Harry's insistence that comedy should respect his wife's struggles is being widely criticized as yet another example of the Sussexes trying to control narratives and silence dissent. Even some of Harry and Meghan's former allies in Hollywood have quietly admitted that Kevin simply said what a lot of people are already thinking. The narrative has now shifted. Harry looks like the uptight prince who can't take a joke, while Meghan looks like a figure of mockery, undermining the carefully polished image they spent millions crafting. As the backlash spreads, the BET Awards roast has become more than just a viral comedy moment. It has become a referendum on Meghan's reputation in America. For years, she has positioned herself as a victim of the British tabloids and royal oppression. But Kevin Hart's jokes cut to the heart of what many Americans now feel, that Meghan is not a silenced victim, but a relentless self-promoter. By laughing at Meghan, the BET audience validated the skepticism that has been growing around her, and in doing so, left Harry looking powerless. Social media was merciless. Memes flooded timelines, with one viral post calling Meghan the Duchess of Drama and another dubbing Harry the Duke of Netflix. The more Harry raged, the more the jokes spread. Behind the scenes, Meghan herself is said to be deeply embarrassed by the roast. According to reports, she was watching the broadcast live and was visibly shaken by Kevin's routine. Friends close to her claim she immediately began making calls, asking whether she should issue a public statement. But PR experts are warning her to stay silent, fearing that any response would only fan the flames further. Harry, however, is said to be pushing for a more aggressive strategy, one that involves challenging Kevin's remarks and framing them as harmful to Meghan's mental health. Yet this approach risks another backlash. The couple being seen as attacking comedy itself, a move that could alienate them from the very Hollywood community they desperately rely on. This is where the scandal grows darker still. Sponsors linked to Meghan and Harry's projects are reportedly monitoring the fallout closely. If Meghan's public image continues to be reduced to a punchline, her brand value could collapse. The Netflix and Spotify debacles have already raised doubts about the couple's marketability, and now, Kevin Hart's roast has exposed just how vulnerable their reputation is to ridicule. Within days of the BET Awards, commentators were asking whether Meghan and Harry could ever again be taken seriously as global leaders. For the Sussexes, the roast was not just a bad night. It was a cultural turning point. The days following the BET Awards turned into a media circus. Kevin Hart's roast of Meghan was replayed endlessly across networks, with late-night comedians picking up where he left off. Even British tabloids, often accused by Meghan of mistreatment, gleefully jumped on the moment, calling it karma on live TV. American outlets, too, were fascinated, not by Meghan's reaction, but by Harry's. His anger became the story. Why was a self-proclaimed champion of freedom, who had left the monarchy claiming to fight for independence, now trying to censor a comedian? Critics painted him as hypocritical, a man who could criticize his own family in books and interviews but couldn't handle a joke about his wife. Inside Montecito, tensions reportedly boiled over. Meghan was said to be livid at Harry's public meltdowns, warning him that his aggressive responses would only make things worse. But Harry, humiliated that his wife had become comedy fodder, allegedly saw this as an attack on their very identity. Those close to the couple claim Harry began calling lawyers, floating the idea of possible defamation suits, a move insiders described as utterly desperate, since comedy roasts are protected speech. Even Meghan, usually quick to align with Harry's outrage, reportedly balked at the idea, fearing it would backfire spectacularly. Meanwhile, Kevin Hart's unapologetic stance became a rallying point for free expression in Hollywood. Rather than isolating him, the controversy boosted his reputation. Comics like Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle subtly defended Hart by making their own jokes about Meghan. The more comedians piled on, the more isolated Meghan and Harry became. What was once whispered in hushed tones, that the Sussexes were difficult, overly sensitive, and obsessed with controlling narratives, was now being said openly on America's biggest stages. The couple had crossed an invisible line. They weren't just mocked. They had become a cultural punchline. As the weeks dragged on, the fallout crystallized into something far more damaging than either Harry or Meghan anticipated. Public opinion, particularly in the U.S., began to shift. Once hailed as victims of a cruel institution, the Sussexes were increasingly seen as celebrities addicted to victimhood, unable to take criticism, and out of touch with everyday struggles. Kevin Hart's roast had cracked open a door that could not be shut. If Meghan could be laughed at, she could no longer be feared. For their critics, it was liberation. For Harry, it was humiliation of the highest order. Sponsors began whispering doubts. Rumors swirled that brands once eager to work with Meghan were quietly pulling back, concerned that her name no longer carried dignity but controversy. Netflix executives, still stinging from underwhelming results of the Sussexes' previous projects, were said to be reassessing future deals. Even Invictus Games insiders, once fiercely loyal to Harry, worried that his constant defensiveness and Hollywood scandals were overshadowing the game's noble purpose. A global image built over years of PR management seemed to unravel in a matter of weeks, all because one comedian dared to laugh. The true sting for Harry, however, was personal. Insiders revealed he had reached out privately to friends in Hollywood, pleading with them to defend Meghan publicly. Few responded. The silence from Hollywood's A-list told its own story. Meghan and Harry had overplayed their hand. They had exhausted goodwill. Instead of rallying to their defense, celebrities and power brokers alike stood back, unwilling to risk their own reputations by aligning with a couple increasingly seen as fragile and humorless. In contrast, Kevin Hart was showered with praise for standing firm, his career only growing stronger from the controversy. By the time the dust settled, one truth had emerged. Kevin Hart's BET Awards roast marked a turning point. What was intended as a comedy bit turned into a cultural reckoning. Meghan's image as untouchable was shattered. Harry's fury only deepened the humiliation. And the world saw in real time that the Sussexes were no longer commanding the respect they once demanded. Instead, they had become a spectacle, mocked by comedians, doubted by brands, and left defenseless by their own overreactions.